Doubles with Luke and Dave. Another week. Hey, we're into preseason mode. Boys are on the bird to Winnipeg on Friday for the game on Saturday. Darian, you're probably keeping track here. Unfortunate news with Philippe Gagnon, just another old lineman. Looks to be a long injury for the Riders.
Yeah, I was looking forward to Gags coming over and joining the Riders. I call him Gags because, he was with me my last year in Montreal. So I know him very well. I know what type of energy he brings. It's just sad that, for the second year in a row, the Riders are having these injuries up front. I saw where McEwen went down as well. So, it's just unfortunate. But, this puts J.O. to the test to see what he can do to have these guys, the backups, ready to go.
Darian, I wanted to ask you, so this week and today in particular, we saw some shuffling along the offensive line. Most notably, Logan Ferland has now moved to center. So obviously, Trevor Harris comes into the season thinking that Sean McEwen is going to be snapping him the ball. It changes to Zach Fry, and now a couple of days after that, it moves to Logan Ferland. How much does that mess you up as a quarterback?
Well, it doesn't really mess me up as a quarterback, but it really hurts the chemistry up front. The quarterback of the O-line is the center. He makes the calls. He gets guys pointed in the right direction. And, it's very important for his IQ to be super high and for him to be on point at all times. So if you're always, changing guys, having a different voice here today and another one here tomorrow, it could kind of mess up the chemistry up front. So I think the center position is one of those positions that you want to have as much stability as possible. So I think they're kind of shuffling guys right now to find out, who's going to be the guy moving forward.
So when it comes to snapping the ball, though, there's obviously a chemistry, or if you will, or a relationship there. How much work do you do with now Logan Ferland?
Well, I think that's for, Tommy Stevens and your short yardage guys who are going to be under center. They have to make sure that they're getting the right fit so that, on 2nd and 1, 2nd and short situations, they're ready to go. As far as, sitting in the shotgun and receiving the snap, it won't be that difficult. Trevor has played with a ton of different quarterbacks over his time. So whether it's a spiral or whether it's a J.O. floater coming back there, I'm sure he'll be fine.
Little shade. I picked that up. We were talking in hour one, and Luke brought up the point that you want to get these starters in, not so much maybe to look at them because you know what they can do. It's for the quarterbacks to have time so you can get a fair look on what some of these receivers can do. If it's a blitz or these guys are just basically falling over and the quarterback's always under pressure, you ain't going to be able to see Myers running the deep route or something you want to get there. So you got to have some sort of protection which it leads to having some of these vets in, Darian.
Yeah, this is the tough part, right? You want to try to keep guys as healthy as possible, but you want them to get those reps needed to get ready for the regular season. And as a quarterback, I hate to say this, but you want to hit the ground a time or two, right? You want to make sure your shoulder muscles can and everything can brace yourself as you're falling. You need to get back into the shape, to hit the ground, so to speak. That's actually an art that people don't really know about. Hitting the ground is a skill, and it's something that if you don't do for a while, you can kind of lose it. So for Trevor, I think it's important that he goes out there, gets pushed down a little bit and can kind of get the rhythm and feel for how his O-line is going to hold up against a pretty good defensive line.
Hey, man, give us two priorities that you had when it came to your offense in the preseason. Like when you were out there, you knew that, for instance, you were going to go for 2 series and then you were going to sit down, right? But what were the priorities for you there in terms of what you wanted to see from an execution standpoint or play standpoint?
Well, first of all, I wanted to just make sure I'm seeing the defense. I mean, for the first 2 weeks of camp, you're just looking at your teammates. You're going against the same defensive schemes each and every day. So it's refreshing to get out there against another team and to be able to see if you can execute against them. So I want to look at another defense first and foremost, and then second of all, I just want to get that game timing down with my receivers. In practice, guys have on sweats, you have on extra layers of clothing, so they're not playing at game speed in practice. You try to emulate it as much as you can, but there's nothing like game speed. So you want to go out there, get a couple completions going, see if you can get some timing routes against game speed, and if you can have a good first possession or two, then you're ready to go, and you can just sit out the rest of the game and get ready for the regular season one.
Doubles, maybe to you first, and then Luke, you answer us. And I don't want to make this sound like not important, but in a preseason game, if you had to rank positions on like which ones aren't so much, we don't need the look as some of these other ones. Like which ones would be at the bottom of the pile there, where you could say we can let this guy sit this one out?
Well, first of all, I think receiver. I mean, these guys run so much in practice. Every day they're doing one-on-ones. You're getting tons of looks at the receivers and what they can do. So I don't think the game really changes much from that perspective. Now, your linebackers, your defensive linemen, guys who have to now tackle guys. You have to bring guys down to the ground, something that, coaches won't allow to happen at practice. This is where you get a chance to evaluate those guys, see if they're physical, see if everything, the attributes that you see on paper, see if it can match up in a game-like situation.
Luke, question to you. Would you echo that?
Yeah, I completely agree on the receivers. I think one of the most important groups, one Doubles didn't mention, are the DBs. You want to know that what they look like in practice versus, again, the receivers that they're seeing every day and knowing the plays. Can you play man, right? Are you going to get into your drops? Can you adjust to your, like Doubles is talking about, is referring to the game speed, right? I think that it doesn't take very long from a defensive lineman standpoint to get used to the game speed, because the guy's trying to hit you in your mouth right away. So you kind of have that attitude where like you have no choice. But I would agree. I really think that the receivers are a group that you can kind of tone down. I really want to see the DBs though. And I especially want to see the DBs in situations where they're having to tackle, because that is the one thing that you don't get any of in practice from a DB perspective. It's that tackle. You just sort of run by guys, tag them on the hips, and by the time the ball gets to the DB's level, if it's a running back, now the running back's completely shut down. They're going at gear one. So, yeah, the most important group in my mind is those DBs.
Darian, I'm glad that you pointed it out, that it is a skill to falling down. That's almost why I was in the Speed Skating Hall of Fame, but that's a different story for a different day. But having said that, in all honesty, guys, when you've become established at your position in this league, right? The preseason training camp is about getting yourselves ready for the season and week number one. So when you are looking at the preseason, and I'll start with Luke and go to Doubles next, when you're looking at this preseason, how much of is it individualistic, right? In the fact that I've got to make sure that I'm ready to go and not have to worry about my teammates around me, or is it still always the ultimate team game?
No, it's definitely, well, at least from a defensive standpoint, you definitely have to understand the alignment, assignment, execution aspect of what you're about to go do. Coaches want to be able to trust the guys that they have out there. And a lot of the time, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it comes down to doing your job. On the defensive line, Gary Echeverry used to always say this to us in 2010, right? Like, water's not smart. Right. But if you poke a hole in a bucket that's full of water, the water is just going to pour out of that hole. And as a defense, we always used to kind of look at it like that. Right. Like the one time you're going to be out of position and out of your gap, that's the one time that the running back is going to bust you open for 15 yards. Right. So now it's not only about doing your job. Now you're impacting everybody else. So I think that from an individualized standpoint, you really sort of create the week one. Now it's, hey, family on three, blah, blah, blah. But I think that you still have to be or have a little bit of that hired gun mentality when you're in training camp.
Yeah, training camp is all about getting yourself ready to go. I mean, even as a veteran, you can't really focus on your position group. You can't be a teacher so much, especially if you're a guy that's not on your way out and you're still playing at a high level. You can't spend too much time teaching. You have to make sure you're ready to go individually. So I agree with Luke. I mean, especially offensively. Now at quarterback, that's more of your team-oriented position where you meet with the guys. You have to have everyone on the same page. But the other positions, you have to lock in on yourself. You make sure you do what you're supposed to do, because if you do what you're supposed to do and everyone else does the same thing, then that's how you have good, successful plays. So you have to focus on yourself initially.
Did you, Darian, in a preseason game ever have someone light you up, or like some Johnny Tryhard come at you too hard? And then Luke, to you, do you ever remember anybody maybe going a little too hard on a QB, or is that allowed in preseason in your mind?
There is no going too hard in preseason mode, man. Those guys are out there trying to kill the quarterback. That's how they're going to get on the team, right? Like, you got to make the team. So yeah, there's.
Yeah. And it's very important, when your media guy passes out the rosters of the other team, you need to see who's playing in that preseason game. If they're loading up a whole bunch of rookies who are just have nothing to lose and going to be coming at you 1,000 miles per hour, then, as a quarterback, I'm looking to get rid of that ball and make sure I don't even risk anything. But if you're playing against the starters, a bunch of veteran guys, guys have an understanding. You just want to go out there, get your reps, make sure everyone is healthy going into week one. There's everyone's on the same page as far as veterans in the preseason, but you got to watch out for those rookies if you're a starter, because some teams, they rest all starters and they go out there with a bunch of rookies. And if you're a veteran going out there against a bunch of rookies, you better watch out.
I don't know if Luke got that memo by the sounds of things.
No, I was speaking purely from a defensive standpoint, man. I don't think that there's any time where a defensive lineman would be like, nah, I'm going to take it easy on this, right? Or maybe I was just never in a situation where I felt comfortable with my personal position on the team. You know what I mean? Like, I always felt like I wanted to grind it out. You know what I mean?
So obviously this occurs, and Darian, you've told the story, and you're bang on, right? When you said about the fact that, if I had to go off script, I'd go off script because I just wanted to make sure that I stood out and I made my case for being on the team and proving what I could do, right? But obviously there's times and plays, whether it's on offense and say a receiver is supposed to run a curl and instead decides to stretch it into a post, that he's supposed to be there, instead he's going over there. Do you still throw him the ball, or do you just eat it in that scenario? And again, on defense too, Luke, right? There's going to be times where you should be going here, you should be challenging this gap. Do you go off what's happening around you, or again, is that all thrown out the window?
Now, I'm not sitting here telling guys to just run the complete wrong route, but the beauty of it is with 5 guys on the field, you always have guys on different levels. And what I mean is, when you're going out there, you have a short route and all of the defenders are low. It just makes no sense to try to force the ball into a short route with low defenders. So now I'm saying maybe you'll decide to read the other side of the field where you may have a route going further down the field. So I don't mean switch up what you need to do in the playbook. I'm just saying sometimes a read may cause for you to read one side of the field, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense to go there. And coaches may be throwing you a pop quiz just to see if not to throw the ball in certain looks, if you're ready enough or ready to take it to the next level and make another read.
Is that, I was going to say, is that a test?
I remember one year.
Sorry, Luke, go ahead.
Sorry, Barney. I remember one year we had, because you get an entire game script, right? For exhibition game 1 or exhibition game 2. And I remember I just wanted to be out there with guys that I trusted, right? Because if you were going to call a blitz or a stunt or a game, and I was going to go from B gap to C gap contain, I didn't want to look like an idiot, right? I wanted to be out there with a guy that knew that he was going from C gap to B gap, right? So like that was, and that's kind of the risk you run when you're playing with guys you don't necessarily trust. So I think that if there is one thing in terms of like guys getting on the same page, it's the communication that you want to have as a defense. Because again, when, like for instance, a lot of people say, oh, well, you know what? They sent the outside linebacker off the strong side, right? And that was just the end of it. Well, hold on a second. If we're sending the linebacker off the strong side, chances are we're going to have to tighten down on the defensive backs, but also the defensive line are going to have to know that they've got to go from one gap to a different gap, because if they don't, they're going to be on sound. So you always kind of wanted to know that the guy inside of you or on the other side of you knew what the hell he was supposed to do, right? Because you were going to look bad if he didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, it probably injury as well, right? Like, you got a guy out there, professional, things are moving fast. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, a guy could run into trouble physically as well. Darian, in a preseason game, would there be more of the offensive playbook scripted going in, or would the coaches want to test, like you talked about, the QBs to maybe audible out if he sees something, or how would that work for the QBs?
No, I think the game plan will be pretty vanilla. Just your basic plays. You may have 10 run plays, 10 pass plays that you can execute at a high level, especially for the starters. You just want to get out there and get the physical part down. For a group that's been together like this group, you're going on year 2. It's not much mentally you have to really focus on. It's about getting out there and physically, receivers dealing with. Everyone has to hit the ground, but now you have more guys tugging on your jersey a little bit in your routes. Like Luke mentioned, for DBs, now DBs have to tackle. There's no more tagging off. And DBs are the smaller guys on the field, right? So now you have to, make up your mind when you're running up against some of these running backs. It's a different mentality. So, going into this game, it's about the physical part, in my opinion, and making sure that your body is ready to go through a grueling season.
And you always hear guys saying they want to see guys playing fast. And that's the other benefit of having a shortened playbook, is that you get to see the guys and you get to evaluate the guys at their top speed. If they're not thinking and they're just going out there and they're playing, then you know what you know. If you go and give them the entire playbook and they're new to the league, right? Now they're playing a little bit slower than you'd want them to play. And you're really not evaluating them. And that also throws off the timing with the guys around them. So that's another reason. I know that we talk about in training camp, you can see the guys that aren't necessarily catching on. The exhibition game, though, is not one of those deals where you want to see who's not catching on and who's not absorbing the playbook. You want everybody out there playing fast so you can get the right evaluation.
Is there anything at all that isn't evaluated during this preseason game? Throw out a couple of scenarios. Number one, special teams, right? You are live special teams. One of the very few times I would suggest during training camp. And the other scenario is to find out who's been paying attention and actually learned the game. And
everything is being evaluated. I'll never forget when I played with Mark Trestman in Montreal. Tress did a walkthrough the day before. And we went over every protocol from having the national anthem to where he wanted people's toes to be on the white line during the national anthem, right? We go in to the first film session after that exhibition game, and you want to know the first thing, trust me, and he lost it. It wasn't just, he literally brought up, and he led the meeting off by this: how can we expect to trust guys to win a championship if we get this? And then he turned on the film, and you know what he pointed out? He pointed out the guys who had their toes over the line. That's what he was looking at. He looked at it all. He was like, can we trust this, guys? And he would put it on us. Can we trust that guy? If that guy's not listening to something simple like the national anthem saying, so everything's evaluated. Everything.
You're nodding, Darian.
I bring this,
For sure. From the time, it doesn't matter what day of the week. From the time you walk out of that locker room and you put on either your practice jersey or your game jersey, you're being filmed. Everything is important. And like Luke said, the teams where we had the most success, it started from the national anthem. It started from where guys lined up. It started from guys taking their helmets off, holding your helmet in the right place, standing beside the guy that you stand beside every single week. You're not switching places. It's the little things like that a lot of people may not realize, but you as an athlete, you don't take these things for granted, because it's all about routine. It's all about trust. And it's all about doing the little things right. And it starts from as soon as you walk out of that locker room.
On the weekend, Calgary had 33 players on their roster who had never played a game of Canadian football. So obviously there's a lot of different rules. My favorite preseason one was years ago when a young Calgary Stampeder quarterback, with time expiring on the clock, instead of taking a snap like you do in Canada, started walking off the field where his teammates had to go grab him and bring him back. I don't know if there's any grace period on that, but is there any oh my gosh, I got to remember that?
I think for returners, I've seen guys try to make a fair catch. I've seen guys not return, miss field goals. I mean, I think, for the rules' sake, us as quarterbacks, we go through the rules all the time. We're always in last second, last minute situational football. You're always studying that. But I think it's essential for these guys who are used to making a fair catch on a punt return, or not even thinking about returning a field goal. It's very important, because we've seen games later in the season won and lost with some of these mistakes. So it's huge during the preseason to make sure you have the rules down pat.
I love it when there's always some gunner going down and he doesn't know the no yards rule thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then light up city. Here we go. Okay, we gotta scram. Darian, thanks so much for doing this again. This is great. Maybe we'll do it again Monday with the fellas. Always a pleasure. Dave and Luke, have a good night. Don't know what it all entails there, but take it all in. Last few days in the big city. Fellas, it's been a pleasure.
All right, boys.
Later, boys.
Doubles, holla.
Sir.